EOI Space. We actually talked to Ben last year, and with a great conversation being introduced to EOI Space. But this year we're going to get a reminder of who they are and what they're up to and what their constellation is all about. So first, go ahead and reintroduce yourself. You have a great history with the industry as a whole, but I want to also learn how you got involved with the industry originally.
Right on. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's actually goes way back. When I was 6, my parents realized I was a geeky little kid, sent me to programming camp. And when I was 12, we had a family friend who worked inside DoD doing stuff with remote sensing. Started showing me, which of course back then meant like printed photo paper satellite images and like drawing on them to do analysis. But, quickly realized an opportunity that bringing, the latest in ground technology and analytics and things together with remote sensing to help people make better decisions, and have managed to stay focused on that my whole career.
That's awesome.
Been a fun ride.
Yeah. So, and you had a little history in government coming before. Yep. Well, you actually had a history in a few things after that too.
I was a research faculty at CU Boulder, working with NOAA for a long time. 10 years as a government employee at NGA. Have done a few different startups, everything from visualization and machine learning analytics to now working on a spacecraft and a new data set coming off of that. So,
and well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
EOI Space. So give us a rundown of what you're trying to do and what it's all about.
Yeah. So I think we're really trying to jump into a place in the community that hasn't been filled yet. So getting very high-res data. So we're looking at data in the neighborhood of 12.5 to 15 centimeters, pan, RGB, near IR, and then really thinking about how do we not only increase collection capacity, but the ability for people to use that increased capacity. So with the full constellation that we've designed, we are able to collect 10,000 5x5 kilometer targets a day when we finally get that up. And then we've put compute clusters on each satellite so that we're able to do data processing and analytics all the way at the edge and try and get that directly to a user so that they can make decisions quickly, effectively, and maybe the image isn't the right thing for every user, right? Maybe some users just want a text message that an event has happened or that an object has arrived at a facility, and they don't care about the image. At my last company I was at, we found that probably like 90+% of our consumers never looked at the image. They just looked at the text that we extracted from the images.
And that's a good metric to understand too.
Yeah.
So, with that many satellites you plan to put up, what would you consider your revisit rate expected to be?
So at Nader, we are sub-hour on a site, and at 70 degrees off Nader, sub 10 minutes on a site.
Wow, we're getting to the point where we're talking about sub-hour, multi-hour revisit rates now. This is crazy.
I really think about it as like TAC SRT as a service.
Yeah.
Like we're getting to that point that it could actually be like, hey, tell me if the North Koreans are prepping a missile launch, and we could ping it, every 10 minutes and see what's going on.
Well, with that kind of revisit rate, we're talking, you said every 10 minutes or so, possibly. You can almost start to analyze traffic patterns around metropolitan areas with that in that regard. So, especially in major rush hours, get validations on major crashes, where they're at. I mean, all kinds of thoughts going through my head as an imagery guy for possibilities opening up. So, you plan on doing any nighttime?
Yes. So we have a cool payload. We custom designed the payload to fit because we have a unique bus for flying at super low altitudes. So the bus is a multi-camera system. And so that allows us to do some really interesting collection strategies that'll support low light imaging, HDR, things like that. So, we're toying with ideas like being able to adjust the settings in a scene where you would be actually bringing out more detail in the shadows and flushing out what's in the sun.
I'm always impressed by how many of the constellations still haven't focused on the other 12 hours of the day. So, and the potential that happens there too. So.
I started my career in low light, so I'm super excited about that part. I'm glad you brought it up. It's so underutilized, but the potential there is huge.
And analyzing the supply chain. You can't analyze the whole supply chain if you're only looking at half the day.
Right.
Oh, well, great. So let's talk about what would you consider your biggest unique differentiators besides that insane revisit rate with the rest of the marketplace? And if we're talking, are you thinking about new ways to do licensing as well? Or is that are you keeping more of a traditional model behind that?
So we'll see. Right now, we have a strong defense and intel focus to start, and so our Cadillac product at the moment is looking at minutes of tasking. So the ability to go in and say, I want to collect inside this minute these targets, and I want that pre-assigned to me and reserved, so I can assure that collection happens. I think we'll see with some of the other stuff. We're on more the archive side with what's happening with the likes of Sky-Fi and Skywatch and things like that. We're almost thinking that we might not even build that interface when all those vendors are going out and doing that we would just go in and let them
be a supplier,
determine that market.
Yeah.
So, and then there are, other potential things like what Umbra's doing and things like that. We'll just have to figure out once we get going.
Great. So what would you consider your biggest hurdles to getting EOI Space online?
Oh, man.
Loaded question.
Everybody says it and it's almost becoming a joke, but the supply chain really still is an issue. It's taken longer and longer to get some of the key parts, some of the critical components. So, we're spending a lot of time looking at for future designs. Are there alternatives we could go to based on newer technology? Are there things we could bring in-house as we grow? So looking at all of that. And then, of course, can't ignore the fact that the fundraising situation right now is challenging with everything going on just between the economy and then things that have happened in the aerospace market. I would argue that all the SPACs that happened recently did not do us any good in terms of building reassurance from the investment community that this is a good place to put dollars. So yeah, things like that. But yeah, other than that, we've got our clean room set up. We've got a bunch of the parts in, and was at the office last Friday and had guys in there in the machine shop building out components for different things and testing parts in the vacuum chamber and things like that. So
what's the hopeful expectation behind getting EOI up in the air?
So we're looking at probably late 25 or early 26.
Okay.
So we've got launches reserved with SpaceX already.
Great.
So if we have to slip, we're not going to get into a situation where we're trying to compete. That's probably another big one still, despite SpaceX, right? There is a competitive market for getting on rides.
Oh, yeah.
And lots of people are not getting the rides they want and are getting limited. We luckily planned way ahead and put money down, and so we have rides pre-booked and ready to go, so that we don't have to wait in line for that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of, let's talk about the business side. Obviously, the satellites are not in the marketplace yet, but it's okay. But in terms of what's your business strategy to bring on new partners? You're already mentioning potentially letting your your reseller network perhaps take on the building some of the platforms.
Yeah.
How do you see EOI Space playing with the rest of the providers out there, especially with interaction with a conference such as this, with the defense and intel, playing with the NRO and NGA and ecosystem like this?
Yeah. So, obviously we're in active conversations with NGA and NRO, trying to keep them aware of what's coming. We've got a TAC-FI with the Space Force looking at the on-orbit compute and doing direct downlink to a warfighter from the spacecraft. And so I think that's one of the big places where we see a huge partnership opportunity, right? I have yet to find a company that can solve everybody's analytic problems across every vertical, much less even across all of defense. And so, we're going to build a satellite with this platform and be a really good data company, and then try to build a analytic ecosystem of partners that come in. And so that if somebody comes to us and says, hey, we want to identify whether or not this TEL is prepping for launch in the field, and, somebody has built that model for us, we're going to go partner with that person and put that model directly on the satellite to get that data to them as fast as possible. And so I think that's going to be one of the most fun partnerships, is just finding all these analytics providers that are out there doing amazing things, from Project Maven to other things in the public, and figuring out how to move that stuff to the spacecraft and get answers to people more quickly than we could before.
Well, great. Is there anything else you'd like the audience, industry, or even government to know about EOI Space before we wrap up?
No.
No. Other than it's coming around the corner.
Don't create Skynet.
Don't create Skynet.
I was just on an AI panel, so that's my my leave for the day. Don't create Skynet.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you, Ben, for giving us an update with EOI Space. Pleasure talking to you as usual, and really looking forward to that constellation. Oh man, sub-hour revisit rate.
It's exciting.
That's crazy. You know, going to love to see that. So I'm Adam Simmons with Project Geospatial. We'll talk to everybody next time.